Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast. As you know by now, my name is Steve Smith and I'm your host. And if you're not sure, my name is still Steve Smith and I'm your host. If it's the first time you've been listening, you are in for a real cracker on this one. This is John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens, a fantastic episode and interview coming to you. You just sit back, relax, grab a drink, come along for the ride, because this is episode number 90. Now, don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, Keeper of the Greens is proudly brought to you by John Deere Golf. Fantastic people at John Deere Golf. And I'm so proud to be able to partner with John Deere Golf. I wanted to make sure that I'm working with somebody who supports the industry, someone who cares about the industry. And in all the times that I've spoken with John Deere Golf leading up to this partnership, that's what I got. That's one of the key things I got out of them is their support of our industry. If you want to be better, if you want to present a better golf course, if you want to get support in what you do every day as greenkeepers, as turf managers, as superintendents, John Deere Golf are the people that you need to be talking to make sure that you can see what they've got to help you do better at what you do. So part of this is making sure that I partner with someone who cares, that wants to support our industry, and that's John Deere Golf. And look, as we know, the game of golf relies on your team's passion and professionalism, which is why you can trust John Deere Golf for a wide range of advanced equipment and dedicated support. They've been around in golf since 1987. John Deere Golf has built a tradition on trust and excellence on golf courses all over the world. And that's the other great part about John Deere Golf is that they're global. They have so much that they can draw on to help support you, which is fantastic in the background. It's the all their experience and all their knowledge and all their gains over all those years that they can support you in what you do, looking after the turf at your site. That's what's so good about having them being there behind you and helping you in what you do. So make sure you reach out to these guys. Make sure you reach out to your local John Deere reps that you can talk to them and find out how, like I said, find out how to be able to do your job better and ask those questions. Now, your local John Deere dealer has everything you need to keep your investment running like clockwork. You can find your nearest John Deere dealer today at deere.com.au. That's DEERE.com.au. And like I said, they're supporting me and supporting our industry. And by supporting me in what I do and being partners in this Keeper of the Green segment of the podcast, they are there to support you as well. So lean on them, guys and girls. Make sure you get out there and get in touch with your John Deere reps. Ladies and gentlemen, it is John Deere Golf Keeper of the Greens. As you know, this is the one that we travel the countryside. Sometimes I'll do it physically where I can. Other times with this great wide brown land of ours, as they say, there is a few thousand kilometres between people that I'll visit. But this one, we're going somewhere that I mentioned at the end of the last episode, that we're going somewhere I've never been. Process of elimination would tell you that this is going to be in the Northern Territory. So this is a world first for the Golfing Greenkeeper podcast and certainly for Keeper of the Greens. We head up to the NT, right up to the north end of town, somewhere in amongst the jungles and the paradise that is the tropical Northern Territory, to a place called Humpty Doo Golf Club. And I welcome on the line Jimmy Downs. G'day, Jimmy. How are you?
Good, Steve. Yourself?
Mate, I am very well, thank you. Now, I've just got a little bit of a clarification here that we'll start off with, and that is it Jimmy or is it James?
Well,
I said Jimmy.
Yeah, it's a long story. Pretty much, since I moved to the Territory, everyone's called me Jimmy. I don't know how that started, but it just did. And so everyone in Brisbane knows me as James. But then, so now I just run with Jimmy and everyone. I introduce myself as Jimmy and everyone just calls me Jimmy.
Geez, it even rubbed off on you. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
Now, mate, this is a first. You're flying the flag loud and proud for the Northern Territory. Mate, how does it feel?
Yeah, pretty good, long-time listener, first-time caller.
I've never had that line. So that's the first time. I love it.
Yeah. No,
Brilliant, mate. And
looking forward to it.
you have been helping me out with a lot of things with walking the fairways. You've been sending me some information over the last couple of years, to be honest, with some of the bits and pieces that are happening, not just of what you're doing, but also other golf courses in the Northern Territory. And I'm pretty certain there is only 11. I think can we clarify that? You're a Northern Territorian now. Is there only 11?
I'm pretty sure you'd have pretty much, you start at the bottom of the track, you'd have Alice Springs, Tennant Creek, which is sand scrapes, Catherine. Then there's a bush course called Moline, which I believe was featured in one of your podcasts.
It was with Lock and Leash from Finding Fairways. Yeah. Yes, indeed.
Yep. Which is a once a year thing, so that's not a regular course. And then you've got Jabiru, which is pretty much all volunteer based. Gove, Groot, Humpty Doo, and then you move into Darwin itself with Palmerston, Darwin Golf Club, the Rath Base Golf Club, and the Gardens.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So you can literally rattle them all off. And if you, I won't say that's not nice to say something silly about 11 golf courses and only 2 hands. We'll leave it there. But mate, like I said, you're flying the flag. So I appreciate that. Now you're literally doing this. We were talking about setting this up. You're doing it from the shed. This is live, people. We're recording live from the shed. This is a real setup, and it's moderately warm today. Yeah, what is it? Yeah. What are you doing up there?
Just casual 36. It cooled off actually in the last it was a bit hotter about a fortnight ago.
It's cooled off.
Temps of 38.7, and yeah, that was starting to get a bit furnacey.
You've cooled off 38 in August. Come on.
Yeah, that was. It was a bit unseasonal, I think, as well.
Oh, mate, there's going to be a lot to unpack here about the Northern Territory, and I'm really looking forward to it. But look, as you know, we start off with a little bit of fun with Steve Super 7, and I managed to stuff it right up and throw it right smack bang in the middle of my last interview with Matthew Bailey from Linwood here in Sydney. But I'm going to try and get it back to the beginning. So, mate, Steve Super 7 questions. Are you ready to go?
Shoot.
All right, sunrise or sunset? Now, actually, before you answer this, there is no middle ground, okay? You're in the Northern Territory that's in line with the middle of the country. There is no middle ground. So I don't want to hear midday or anything like this. So it's a sunrise or sunset. What have you got for the North?
I'm going to fence it.
Oh, you can't. I've already put the ground rules in.
Yeah. So on the golf course, sunset.
Okay.
But in the morning, barra fishing, there's just nothing like it. Just being out in the water as the sun's coming up, fishing the rivers and stuff. It's something else. So, yeah, fishing for me is sunrise, but golfing, sunset.
That's okay. I'll accept your response. That's pretty cool. I've not done barra fishing. My man is a mad fisherman, and he's done the barra fishing up north, but I've never done it. And you got some pretty impressive and incredible landscapes and rivers and gorges that you go barra fishing up there, haven't you?
Yeah. The environment's pretty rad. And I was lucky. I was probably getting into this too early, but I did spend some time out on Groot Island, and the fishing out there was just it was something different.
So where's that? Did you say Groot Island?
Yeah, Groot Island.
Is that like Groot, the character from that?
Not quite. So. Groot Island is a small island in the Gulf of Carpentaria. If you get a ruler out and draw a line between Darwin and Cairns,
yep,
sort of in the middle, towards the Territory side, that's where it is.
Get out of town. How do you get there? Like, how long a boat trip? Sorry?
A couple of airplanes.
Well, you got to land on the island?
Yeah, you can fly to the island, yep.
Wow. That's impressive. I didn't think you were going to say that. I was like, how long's a boat trip?
3 days from Darwin.
What? For real?
Yeah, for real. But that's another story because I work for a shipping company, so we'll go into that later.
We're only on number 1 of my 7 questions.
Yeah, I
We've
know.
already
We've got to
talking.
keep it simple, eh?
We've already digressed. Here I am thinking, and we'll get to this. Humpty Doo is not a big golf course, so here I am thinking that this is. I'm gonna have to think about how this could be a very short conversation, but this is turning out to be long. Okay, let's go through that. We'll get there. Number 2: dogs or no dogs allowed on the golf course? Do you have dogs up there? Oh, that's a stupid question. I shouldn't say that. Of course you do. Dogs or no dogs?
No dogs on the course.
Okay.
And that's because we've got a reasonably healthy population of wallabies and
wow.
water monitors and things, other wildlife and stuff. And it's just a bit hard. I thought about trying to introduce that to the course, as another sort of, to sort of modernise things a little bit, but someone highlighted that to me, and I said, no, that's a fair point. So we'll try and
Cool.
No dogs.
Cool. Okay, that's fair enough. Enough. Number 3: stripes or no stripes on fairways? What's your pick, mate? What are you thinking?
Oh, I like stripes.
Very good. Number 4: green coloured sand or natural coloured sand to repair divots?
Well, green sand's a bit fancy. Yeah, tell you the truth, it's just normal sand's fine for me. We definitely do not have the budget for that green sand, and I'm just happy that people fill their divots half the time.
Oh, well, okay, let's go with that. We'll leave it there. Number 5: favourite grass variety. Now, I don't know. We're going to talk about your experience, mate. But I'm curious. Maybe this will lead into it as we get the conversation going when we're done here. What's your favourite grass variety?
I've got a bit of a soft spot for 3 to 8.
Oh, okay, 3 to 8. That's an older cooch variety on greens.
It's a very older variety. But more recently, probably Zoysias, the Empire Zoysias, sort of tickled me fancy a bit.
Right. Okay. We're venturing into different things here. This is good. This is good. Number 6. We'll move along. Number 6: preferred style of golf course. Now, I'm sure you know these. I don't know if you've been to them, but let's see how we go here. Cape Wickham, down on King Island there in Tasmania. Kingston Heath on the beautiful Sandbelt, or Elliston up in the western side of the Barrington Tops there, just to the north of Scone?
I have been to Kingston Heath.
Very good.
I went there back in 2009 for when Tiger was famously, that was the end of his sort of reign, so to speak.
That would have been a pretty cool experience. Victory. That would have been good.
Yeah, I mean, their fairways were better than my greens, and I was just in absolute awe of how good their fairways were there. It was, it was something special. So I'll say Kingston Heath only because that's the only one I sort of know out of the...
Okay. Mate, it's hard to go past anyway. It doesn't matter whether you know them or not, to be honest. Very good.
I'm a sucker for a really good resort course.
Ah, okay. Yeah, cool. Nice. Number 7, the final one, mate. This is interesting. If you could walk around, but not play, just to walk around and take it all in, walk around any golf course in Australia tomorrow, which one would it be? Big question, I know.
I would probably say 7 Mile, just because some of the photos that you've put up, and I'll follow them on Insta now.
Yep, good.
It just looks spectacular.
It's pretty special. I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy getting down there. It's already on bucket lists, and it's not even available to be on the list. That's very good, mate. Very good. 7 Mile. It's going to be on everyone's list, I've got no doubt. So, mate, thank you very much for that. Bit of fun. We'll compare that, and everyone listening will compare that with themselves and what their thoughts are. Now, mate, let's get into the thick of this. Let's talk about the Northern Territory, what it's like to look after a golf course up there. Let's talk about your career. Mate, how did... let's start off at the beginning for you. How did you get into greenkeeping? And this is obviously the starting point for this episode, this series of episodes as we go along, that we all start at the beginning of their careers. So how did you get into greenkeeping, mate? And you mentioned Brisbane before, so I'm going to go with the fact that you're not a Northern Territorian by birth and growing up. I could be wrong. But tell us about your earliest time into greenkeeping, how you got into it, how you found your way to looking after grass.
Yeah, so grew up in Brisbane, and I hated high school, and I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do, and just by some chance I come across a horticulture course that was at the local TAFE, and it was Morton Institute of TAFE down in the south side of Brisbane there, and I thought, I'll give that a crack, and did the old back in those days. It seemed a little bit more in depth. It did sort of that Cert 1 and 2 in Parks and Gardens, it was, in the first semester. So you sort of, learnt the basics. I wanted to get into it a bit faster, but I didn't quite have the levels required schooling-wise.
Yep.
I think I failed science, actually. Which is funny considering what we do.
I was going to say that we have a fair crack of science, but isn't it funny, the conversion? It's not necessarily about how well you got at school, because you pick up a lot of this stuff. You pick up some of the details and that finer point of interest. Not the broader science thing, but it becomes something as you go along that you really want to learn more in that real niche that is greenkeeping in sports turf, right? That's what I've found. That's what I've heard from lots of people that we've chatted about their careers. It's not necessarily just that how you were at school doesn't necessarily relate or convert to greenkeeping and sports turf. And it becomes this real passion once you get started. And a lot of people really then dive in, and they didn't realise they had that love or that interest in some of those fields.
Yeah. And so that was like a 3-day-a-week sort of a course, and full-time. And I had 2 spare days, so I was like, what am I going to do? And, just one of those things. I played soccer as a kid, and then just so happened that one of the other dads was a local greenkeeper at the Bowls Club, which was just virtually down the road. It was a 5-minute ride on my push bike, the Redlands Sporting Club. And he looked after the bowling greens there and said if I wanted to, come and learn some stuff and help out and all that sort of thing, I'd come down and do that. So
that's cool. So that's how you got that. That's how you found your way into it. Is from that bowling club. Yeah,
and that was sort of the start of it. And I didn't really follow it, if that makes any sense. So, I did a year's there, Monday, Tuesday mornings. Helped him do all sorts of stuff. Rolling greens, mowing, raking the ditches, and putting out the old chalk lines on the bowling green.
Cool.
Doing all that sort of stuff. And as a 15-year-old, I was just, happy to be doing something and, learning different things. And, as it is when you all start out, one of those bowling green rollers, the 5-foot roller, you jump on it and you're fanging across the green and
fanging.
That old time where you go a little bit too quick on a dewy green and you just sort of slide off into the ditch. And, I was one of those kids where I was, mortified, thinking I'm going to get, beaten up and...
You lose your job and everything that goes with it.
I was doing it for free, so it wasn't...
right.
Hey, so it's even, and I still had that in me to, I was feeling, real bad. And
sure.
And, the old greenkeeper, he wasn't there at the time, and I'm like, how am I going to get this thing out of the pit?
No.
And they weigh, I don't know, 180.
Yeah, they're heavy.
So, if you don't know, I'm 6'4", and I'm a big dude, and so I don't know how I did it. I just summoned all the strength I had, and I just lifted this roller out one side at a time and got it out and got back on it and kept rolling. Didn't break nothing. Sweet.
Dead set.
Sweet, I got away with it. He's not going to notice. There was just like these tiny little marks where it's gone off the edge. And if anyone has probably done it, they, where the roller goes off, it just leaves that sort of crease as it comes off into the ditch. And I was like, no, he won't notice that. Sure enough, I'm doing something else, and he's doing his little walk around, and next minute he stops where I put it in the ditch, has a look. And I was like, I'm sprung here, I'm done. And he never said anything to me, but, it was one of those things that I definitely was a lot slower on that roller after that.
You learnt the limitations pretty quickly, and it slowed you down.
Yeah, it certainly did.
Very good. So how you talked about being at
Oh,
school? What year? What era are we talking?
so that would have been 2000.
Okay, cool.
And then sort of did that for a year. I finished my Cert 3 in Parks and Gardens, and I was like, oh, what am I going to do now? And I was like, oh, I'm really enjoying this study at TAFE, and it was nice to be somewhere where people wanted to learn. It was a very different environment than high school.
Yep.
So I thought, I spoke to my mum, what do we do? And I'm just like, oh, I'm happy to keep going. And she's like, okay. So she supported me in that, and went back to TAFE and did a Cert 4 in general horticulture. And I thought, I got these other 2 days. I need to fill in with something else. And so I gave up the bowling green stuff and decided to do Cert 2 in nursery and Cert 2 in landscaping at the same time.
Wow.
Just because, I had days to spare. Nothing else better to do. So I did that and finished those, and then the next 6 months come around and I was like, oh, well, I'll just keep going. And so then it was the diploma in general horticulture. And at that time, I couldn't quite do both. So I ended up doing another Cert 3 in nursery. And so, finished the end of the 2 years with Cert 3 in Parks and Gardens and nursery, and Cert 4 in general horticulture and diploma in general horticulture. So
wow, that's quite the stack of academic qualifications, mate.
Yeah, and
impressive.
A lot of my friends were leaving high school, and they were leaving with their high school certificate, and I was leaving technically with a fistful of stuff under my belt.
That's huge, mate. Well done. That's very impressive, especially considering, like you said to begin with, you just didn't do great at school and you didn't know what you want to do. Here you are, you've applied yourself and come away with a couple of certificates under your belt and a lot of knowledge in hort.
And that was probably a bit of a downside at one point. But the next year I thought, right, I'll start applying for jobs, and I had this vision of getting on an island, working up north somewhere, and I was, trying all the resorts all the way up the east coast of Queensland, Hayman, Hamilton, Dunk, all those islands, all the way up past Cairns. And this one job was Groote Island and in the paper, and I was like, oh, I'll applied for that, and a whole heap of other jobs because, as you were, I was on, New Start, I think, with $140 a fortnight I was getting.
Yeah, right.
Not a great deal of money, and so I was having to find the old 10 jobs per week sort of caper, and tried all the nurseries around the local area because the Redlands in Brisbane is, they used to be the food bowl of Brisbane. Now it's sort of more estates than anything.
Yep.
Housing estates.
Yep.
But there used to be a ton of nurseries and that around, and I tried all the nurseries, and I think after 3 months I applied for 60 different positions. I got 3 interviews, and the common one was I was too qualified.
Yeah, right.
Because obviously the award wages, they would have had to have paid me at the higher rate because I had the higher qualifications.
Yeah, okay, yep.
Or the other one was I didn't have enough experience.
Yeah, don't you love that old chestnut?
So I was too qualified with not enough experience.
No one was prepared to give you a go either if you weren't experienced enough.
Correct.
And so this was into the resort side of things, and you were trying for the nurseries and bits and pieces like that as well, some of the hort stuff.
I was, sort of trying just about everything.
And, had golf ever entered your mind?
It hadn't. I tried to think at a couple of driving ranges and stuff.
Okay.
But, never got really anywhere. And then, the job for Groote Island come up, and I got a phone call. Oh, we'd like you to come in for an interview. And so, got all dressed up and had to get my neighbour across the road to drive me into town because I didn't have a car. So off we go into Brisbane. We had a bit of an interview, and he goes, I just wanted to make sure you weren't wearing singlet and thongs, and you got the job. Can you start in a week?
Wow.
We'll fly you up, and away you go.
Right. That was
So,
quick. After a long period of nothing, you get offered a job on the spot with a turnaround in a week.
Yeah, so off I went, and I was 17 and a half.
Wow.
At that point. So Mum was a bit sad to see me go, but I was keen as mustard going on this big adventure, you know.
Yeah, totally.
And get to the Darwin airport, and Darwin, and doors open. I went out for a bit of a look. I was like, oh, it's warm out here. I think I'll just go back and sit inside the aircon in the airport and wait for my next flight. So it took, and then I got the next flight from Darwin to Gove.
Yep.
And then the flight sort of hopscotched across, and then from there to Groote Island. And by this stage, it's 8 o'clock at night, pitch black, and get off the plane. You know, I don't know anyone. And my boss was apparently going to be waiting for me at the airport. So I was like, okay. So I figured this would be easy sort of thing. It was only a 28-seater plane, twin prop. So small plane, and get off, and it seemed like everybody sort of knew everybody. And I was like, got a few looks like, oh, who's this fella, sort of thing. So,
and you're just a kid coming out of Brisbane in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the golf cafeteria.
Yep. And I step off the plane and whack. I'm like, holy. And I meet up with my new boss, and I was like, oh, did it just rain here? And he's like, oh, no, that's just the humidity. I'm like, holy.
Well, compared to Darwin, it was that different.
Yep. And I was just like, oh, my, what have I got myself in for?
Whoa.
It was thick. There's no other way to describe it. You just off that plane, nice air-conditioned plane.
Yeah.
Off, and then just whack in your face as you're walking off the steps off the plane, walking off the runway. And I swore they'd had a thunderstorm within 5 minutes.
Fair dinkum.
It was that thick, and he was just like, oh no, this is just the wet season. I was just like, oh
wow, I can't believe it's that different to Darwin. I just assume you get north of Brisbane, and for my body, you get north of Brisbane, even further south than that, you just get north of Sydney and everything becomes too humid. But that's a big call to be that different from Darwin. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it was a good job. Like, it come with accommodation, meals. So for a young 17-and-a-half-year-old, this is kicking goals. I didn't have to clean my room, and had room and shower and toilet and all that sort of stuff. And they used to call them the SRAs. So it was like a single room accommodation. So you had a mixture of all the mine guys. So there's a mine on Groote.
On the island?
Yeah, on the island. That's the main reason why the people are there. It's for,
wow.
Gemco is the company out there, and they mine manganese.
Oh, okay. Yep.
They're one of the largest producers at the time of manganese in the world.
Wow.
Especially like the high grade manganese. So
there you go. This is a place there's not many places that you can stump me in this country. If I haven't been there, I've certainly studied a map and looked at it closely. I'm flying blind, and I don't want to start searching on my phone in case I hang up on you. But as soon as this is finished, trust me, I will be Googling the living bejesus out of this place and wondering what the hell it is all about. So, okay, so this had nothing to do with this. There was no horticultural background in this role. It was just a job.
No, it was. So I was going as a groundsman. They had a 9-hole golf course there.
Get out of town. Are you for real?
Yep.
What?
Yeah, lovely little course, actually.
No way.
The nickname of the Pebble Beach of the Northern Territory. It's,
that's outrageous.
Nice. Yeah.
That is absolutely outrageous. I can't, and it was, okay, tell me more. Were they sand scrapes?
No, they were green greens, 3 to 8, grass greens.
Why don't we know?
Why don't we know about this golf course? It's essentially
It's for the employees, right? I guess.
the employees. Yep, yep.
It's like
but the club itself is run sort of in conjunction. Like the mining company sort of pays for the maintenance. The golf club is sort of the club that sort of does the golf events and runs a club itself.
Yep.
Bar and all that jazz.
So can you get on the island for any reason other than if you work there? Essentially, is the island owned by more or less these people, or is it? Do people live there for the?
So the island itself is part of the Andiliaqua archipelago. So it's pretty much, if you think of Arnhem Land,
yep,
it's its own little thing off the coast, of Arnhem Land.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
It has its own land council and it's
wow.
So essentially, there's the mining lease, which the town of Aliangula, which is where everyone sort of lives, and then the mine site itself, which is about 17 k's down the highway, and so pretty much everyone that works in the mine lives in the town. The island itself, it's about 50 k's across, 60 k's long.
What?
So it's very similar size, almost to Singapore, I believe. Don't quote me on that.
I can't, mate. I can't. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to use my telephone. My head is kerfuddled.
Yes, I'm pretty certain it's the third or fourth largest island in Australia.
I can't get my head around this. I need my Google Maps to work. Come on, phone. That's outrageous. This is the most bizarre thing I've ever heard of. Absolutely. Anyway, mate, go on.
Yeah, so little 9-hole course, and so the job entailed looking after the golf course, looking after the town, all the irrigation around all the parks. So essentially, we're kind of like a sports oval as well. We were kind of like a parks and gardens for a council.
Okay, gotcha. Yep.
Yeah, that's probably the easiest way to describe it. And when I first got there, I was the odd one out. I was the only non-qualified greenkeeper.
Really? Mate, you are telling some serious stories right now. This is unreal. I can't get over what you're telling me. So, how many people worked at the golf course?
So there was the 5 of us that looked after the course, the town oval, the all the parks and gardens around the town. So looking after all the irrigation, gardening, emptying the rubbish bins around the parks. Even did a bit of the stuff with the pool. Looked after that at times. So we pretty much had our hands in just about everything. And my boss at the time, his name was Guy Wallace, and he'd come from Royal Pines on the Gold Coast.
Oh, righto.
So he was a wealth of knowledge.
For sure. I mean, that's a very, very, very well-regarded golf course on the Gold Coast.
And there was a couple of other lads that had worked at Coolum.
Right.
Twin Waters, I believe. I think it's Twin Waters Coolum. I think that's the course. This is going back some years now, so
yeah.
Probably a little rusty. But yeah, so I was the odd one out, being the horticulturalist, and the rest of these guys had all essentially done their studies at Grovely in Brisbane, which was for a lot of the Brisbane guys, Grovely TAFE was the place to go to do all your greenkeeping stuff.
Right. Okay.
And so I was the odd one out. And yeah, so get straight into it. I think it was my second week in. We're doing renos. We had an old Ryan sit on, had the 2 sort of arms out the front.
Out the front,
You held onto, and it sort of wobbled along as you went.
Yeah, it's like a T-bar of a bobcat or something.
Yeah, and it used to, bang along, and away you went. And so we were pushing the cores off, and me being straight out of Brisbane, nice sort of 23-degree weather, and going to work essentially what was March, which is the middle of the wet season, and wearing long pants, long shirts for the first time, and we're out there pushing cores off these greens, and sure enough, one of the guys was a volunteer EMT guy, and he looked at me and he goes, "You need to sit down." I was like, "Oh no, I'm right." You know, being young and you know, a bit cocky, so to speak. You know, yeah, I can do this. And he's like, "No, you need to sit down." So pretty much just dragged me off the level lawn, put me down in the shade and started feeding me water. And I'm like, "Oh, what's going on?" He goes, "You've turned white."
Oh, dude.
So I'd stopped sweating.
Oh.
And turned white, and I was in the dangerous phase of being completely dehydrated.
You're in the pass out phase. You're ready to just fall down.
Yeah.
Wow.
That was a bit of an eye opener, and just luckily that, you know, I had a guy there who has later become a paramedic. He was quick enough and could see the signs that I was really struggling, and you know, me thinking, "Oh no, I can do this," young, you know, 17-year-old that, you know, I can do anything, and no, I couldn't. And that was a real eye opener.
No, I couldn't. You've just been showed that you just need to just calm down a little bit, champ.
Yeah. And pull your head in. And those guys were good for that, because I probably went up there with too much knowledge and not enough experience, and they really got me to think outside the square. Those guys, and I'll always be appreciated for their help doing that.
Mate, I've found Aliangula. Is that
Aliangula?
Aliangula? I've found everybody. I've found it on Google Maps and Google Earth. It's a banging looking 9-hole track, and there's a hole down there that's like, is it a short par 4 or is it along the beach?
Yeah, so there's a short par 4, and then there's a short par 3 along the beach.
Oh, okay,
the
wow.
Second and third holes, and they're really pretty.
And then you go up, then there's one across the back along, looks like a long par 4 maybe, along the northern boundary. It looks like a little perler. But there you go. I can't. That island is significant, and that's not what I was expecting. Man, you've just opened me up to something new. That's unreal. I love it. And the quality of the people looking after the golf course that you were part of the team of, that is epic. That's epic.
Yeah, they were good.
Unreal. So how long did you... I'm conscious that this is about you at Humpty Doo here, and I'm getting sidetracked by this Aliangula joint that's... Anyway.
It was a short course, par 65.
Yeah, okay.
And my best round there was 66, not to brag, but...
nice. So how long did you spend working there?
I said I'd stay for 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, and that was sort of my plan. And 5 years come and went, and I was there for 12.
Whoa! Hey, I need to recalibrate my brain right now. You've gone from passing out nearly when you got there at the age of 17, and it's more humid than Darwin, on an island that I haven't heard of, with a golf course that didn't know existed as part of a town that's essentially a mining town. Mate, I'm glad I hadn't asked you any of this stuff before. This is unbelievable. 12 years. So there were 5 people you were looking after, like you said, when you first got there, as part of the ovals and the golf course. That would have been a really interesting role to be performing over there.
Yeah, and so obviously times changed, and companies. I was working for a contractor that was looking after that contract for the mining company, and then obviously changed contractors. Some stayed on, some left, and we got to a point where we then had the buses for the shuttling the mine workers to and from the mine. They become part of the Parks and Gardens department. So you had guys mowing lawns, then jumping on a bus, and then taking out 50 miners to the mine, and then coming back and doing other things. So
sure, I can see the logic in those roles being married together.
yeah. So definitely got some interesting characters with the bus drivers and that, and trying to train them up to mow, use out fronts and all that sort of stuff, and get them to do some gardening when they were bus drivers. That was
right.
So in the end, there was pretty much there was a town horticulturalist, which I had that job for a few years.
Yep.
We had a greenkeeper and then a manager, and then everyone else was just, doing their other jobs and stuff. And
right.
So essentially it really got wound back the level of greenkeepers that were employed to virtually just one.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then they just had the other guys supplementing, doing rough mowing and other bits and pieces, but you had one greenkeeper sort of maintaining the course the whole time. And then I sort of transitioned into the greenkeeping role and then looked after the course. I think it was nearly for about 5 years. And had a few different guys come and work for me. There was a young fella from Cairns that come across from Sea Temple.
Okay.
He was pretty handy. And then he obviously got poached by Mossman Golf Club. He's now their superintendent in Mossman, Matty. And he felt really bad. He's like, I feel bad. I'm leaving you in the lurch, because he was pretty much my second that just helped me on the course. And I was like, I can't help, I can't stop people from bettering themselves.
Sure.
So don't worry about me. I'll be all right. I'll survive. I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. And so definitely got to meet a lot of interesting people. And if you like fishing and golf, it was a good place to be.
Yeah, wow, that's cool.
One of the hardest challenges, obviously, was being so remote. You had one barge come and service the island at that time once a week from Darwin.
Wow.
So if it didn't get on the barge, that was a good old saying on Groot was, it's on the next barge. If it didn't come that barge, it's on the next barge. And everything was on the next barge. So
wow.
And we were getting our chemicals out of the old, I can't remember their name now, but they were in Adelaide. And so it was nearly a 4-week turnaround.
Whoa.
Ordering stuff over the phone, getting it trucked up to Darwin. Then it would sit in the port in Darwin until it was right to come across, and then come across and get unloaded, and then finally get delivered to us. And so you had, generally you didn't get anything within 3 to 4 weeks when it come to chemicals and stuff. So you had to plan really well in advance, especially for renovations and things like that.
So and you bring a good point then. So being so remote, that would have to be, you'd have to be one of the most remote golf courses in Australia, wouldn't you? Just thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'd say maybe like Christmas Island might beat us, or Cocos Islands.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, fair cop.
If you call that mainland Australia.
Yeah, well, they're essentially...
They're closer to Jakarta.
Yeah. Yeah, okay, fair call. But just, wow. That's so. What did you do? What did you do for soils, for example? You're renovating your greens. You were maintaining the golf course in the same way that we all do, because you had grass greens. So did you have to bring that over? Was that on the barge on trucks as well, or did you just make do with what you could get on the island?
Yeah, pretty much what we could get on the island. So we used to do a bit of a public service, and there was an old boat ramp, and used to get filled up with sand. Like the sand would just wash in and fill out and cover over the boat ramp. So we used to take the old loader down there and clean the boat ramp off, and at the same time we'd take the loads of sand in the truck and take it back to the golf club and pile it up, and that's what we'd use. The only problem with that was, it was full of rocks and coral, and sometimes you'd be there hand screening it through a mesh screen by hand, each load into the top dresser,
Wow.
just trying to get as most of the coral out as you could. And if you couldn't do that, you'd just have to screen it off with the level on, and then just have all these little piles of shells and coral at the end of the green, and you just scoop them up and get rid of them. The mowers didn't like it very much at all, I can tell you that.
First world problems. Is that like an application of lime, essentially? Broken down limestone?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, that's wild. First world problems.
Yeah, sometimes. Hand sifting sand there. That was
wow. Great. That's unreal. And did you enjoy? You must have enjoyed your time there. You're there for so long, 12 years. Like, it was remote, but you enjoyed it. Clearly, there must be a lot of people. How many people on the island, roughly? Do you know?
It's across. There's the Aliangula had at that time sort of around that 1,200.
Okay, so it wasn't like a tiny village.
No, but everyone knew everyone's business.
Of course.
Yeah,
of course.
Yeah.
So
you waved to everyone as you drove past. It was that place. You give them a wave, and then 5 minutes later they drive past you again. You give them another wave, and then they drive past you again. 5 minutes later, you give them another wave. It's just it was one of those places. It was good.
That's epic.
I really enjoyed the social side of Groot. There was always a fishing comp on. There was always a golf comp on. So you're always getting out there doing that sort of stuff, and and then I suppose I got quite mad into golf, and I really started practicing every day and trying to get better, and I got down to 7. That was about as best I got. Nothing like that now.
I reckon you could safely say that there's not many people in the world, let alone Australia, that could say they got into golf at an island like Ariangula.
Yeah.
If that's...
I was one of those guys that I'd get home and then I'd be putting on the European tour and watching that and be like, oh yeah,
yeah, wow.
And then get up early in the mornings to watch a bit of the PGA, and got to go to work now. Yep, off I go, and away you went. And
that's epic.
Yeah, I got right into it, and to the point where I think at age 23, 24, must have been around that time, 24, I was vice president of the golf club.
Yeah, right.
I did that for 3 years. Before that, I think I was handicapper. I was on the committee.
Wow. That's huge.
And we had this really good relationship with the Gove Golf Club, and we used to go to each other's opens, and that was our we had like a little shield. So a bunch of us would fly over, play their open, and a bunch of them would fly over or jump in a tinny or something crazy like that and spend 6 hours in a boat and come down and play our open.
That is so cool, because Gove is essentially like it's what we often know as Nullarbor. Is that how you pronounce it usually?
Yep. Sorry, I'm going off the. I'm a bit. It's all Nullarbor now, but
yes.
I knew it as Gove a lot when I was younger.
Correct. Yeah. No, just so people know, in case they think of like a weather map, we see it on the news, they go, Nullarbor, it's going to be 57 degrees or something up there, ridiculous, with the 200% humidity. So you got, wow, that's unbelievable, mate. So you really that's where you got right into golf. That was a turn in not only your career, but being on the island, being remote. You got stuck into it, and then you fell in love with the game of golf and got involved so much with the club at Groot for that as well. And you were there for 12 years. Can I ask you a silly question? And I know we're jumping around here a little bit and moving through your career, because I'm really excited about Humpty Doo if this is your journey to get there. Why did you end up moving? How did you move on, and why did you take that move?
The contract ended that I was currently the company I was working for.
Yep.
And I thought there was a new contractor that come on island. They offered me a considerable amount of money to stay. A lot more than what I was on, and I asked them 3 simple questions and they couldn't answer them.
Right.
And I was like, this is going to be a bit of a dog's breakfast.
Yep. A polite way of saying it.
And
it's going to be a cluster.
100%. And so I thought, I'll bail and I'll see if I can go and do something else.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, okay. That makes sense. You didn't feel that it was going to work.
Yeah, I just could see that they didn't know what they were getting themselves into, and it was just going to be a lot harder than the previous company that I was working for. So it was sort of like I could see the writing on the wall.
Yep.
Not that they wanted me to stay, so it wasn't like everyone was like appreciative of the work and the what I did, that everyone was happy with my stuff, but it was more the business side of things. I could see, this is just going to go downhill.
Yeah, right.
They didn't last. They only lasted 2 years.
Oh, well, that was
of a 5-year contract. So
that
I
was
sort of made the right decision.
That was my next question. Can I ask? Sometimes we often look back, or you still keep an ear to the ground of a place that you enjoyed so much. Do you know what happened? There you go. They didn't last long.
Yeah.
So that's a shame.
And probably the bigger challenge working on Group was we actually had to comply with mining safety.
Oh, okay. Even in the hort side of things.
Yep. So we had to do the safety paperwork like they did in the mine sites. We had to do lockouts and like isolating of machines and all that sort of pre-starts. And if any of the ex-miners are golfing out there that are listening to this, they'll know what I'm talking about. You know, wearing hard hats at certain times, getting permits to work at heights, permits to excavate. It got very paper laden to try and do things.
And that's because you were under that banner of the contractor.
We were working for the mining company, so we had to abide by their
everything becomes to that level of safety and all the paperwork that's required. Okay, yeah, fair call. It makes sense, I guess. That's
even
what it is.
To the point where some chemicals weren't allowed on site because they deemed them too hazardous.
Wow. Okay. Interesting.
And they were just fungicides and insecticides, things like that. So
interesting. I wonder how could an ag chemical be deemed too dangerous relative to the stuff that they use in mining? I know I've no idea about mining, but that sounds interesting to me. There you go.
Yeah, and I had heard recently that they'd purchased, the contractor had purchased, that's looking after the course at the moment, a whole heap of new gear, and it was all petrol. And due to the mining emissions that the company has set, all that equipment that they bought, they can't use it. Like a whole heap of stuff, bunker machines, and a whole heap of other gear that was all petrol, because obviously petrol's cheaper. The machinery's cheaper at the moment. Going back a couple of years there where everything diesel was super expensive and everyone was sort of going the petrol route.
Yeah, right.
They can't use any of this brand new equipment.
Yeah, wow, that's interesting.
And they're really struggling. So
I wonder if John Deere Golf can help them out. There you go. There's something that we can work with John Deere Golf to see if they might be able to help out the and see if they can sort something out there for the team working on the course at Groot Island up there in the NT. There we go, mate. That's really interesting. Okay, so let's turn the page for us so we can this. I could talk to you about that place all day, dead set, but. Like I said, this isn't about Groot Island, mate. When did you make the move? What year are we talking that you made the move out of Groot Island, and where did you go?
2014. It all sort of come about very quickly. I was trying to get work with the company that I was working with. They had multiple sites around Australia, worldwide.
Yep.
And I was looking at going to WA, one of the mines out there, to look after like a sports field at one of the camps in the mines out there. And sort of that didn't work out. And then there was one on the East Coast, I think Curtis Island, there was stuff going there, but I didn't like what they were paying. And, you know how it is. You can start getting picky after a while.
Yeah, of course.
And then it all just come to a head, and all of a sudden I'm on a plane flying into Darwin on Cracker Night, which many of you may know of, at the 1st of June.
Nope. No idea.
June, 1st of July.
NFI
1st
for
of
me,
July,
mate.
sorry. Cracker night. You can let off fireworks.
Complete NFI. I'm an Easterner from Sydney, mate. I got no idea. What's Cracker Night?
You can let off fireworks.
Is that a Northern Territory thing?
Yep.
A Darwinian thing?
Yeah.
And hang on, is this where the Darwin Awards came from?
Well, there's some people being awarded that after some of their antics.
Let's not go down that one. That could be a disastrous bit of content.
Yeah. So
Oh, dear.
I'd booked myself a holiday. I flew to Bali and thinking, okay, I'll spend a month in Bali, just chilling out, trying to reset, figure out what I want to do, where I want to go.
Yep.
So then I got on that train again where I was applying for a bazillion jobs and
Oh, really?
getting nowhere. And I went round to all the courses in Bali and handed them my resume personally, thinking, go in, show a face, bit of paper, here you go. But Groote Island wasn't a well-known golf course, obviously, as you never heard of it. And so all that didn't mean anything because it didn't have a name. And
That's wow.
So, yeah, sort of got to that. You've got plenty of experience, but you're not from a prestigious club, so
and
they never got back to me.
Is that a bit of a thing, like overseas, like at a place like Bali? It's very touristy. Obviously, a lot of Aussies travel to Bali, a great deal of them. There's a lot of good golf courses there, high-end stuff that people will travel to play for, and because it's a popular destination. Is that why, though? Because you're not from a golf course with a name? I don't know a lot about Bali at all, so I don't know.
So, because, there was the Greg Norman course there, Nirvana, which then got bought by Trump.
Well, Mick Pascoe, who I've had on this podcast, he's over there now looking after the Trump Lido, it's called. It's just open there.
So they must have redone it.
There you go. I don't know if that's the same one, but it's Trump Lido. He was telling me it was going to be called, and he was finishing off the construction of it to get it open, and he was sending me some photos, and it looked out of this world. But I don't know if it was a former project that stalled and then Trump got it. I'm not sure.
Yeah, Trump got it, knocked down a few things, and then I think COVID hit and everyone shut shop.
Right, okay.
That was the last I'd sort of heard of it. But I sat in Bali, got up every morning, started applying for more jobs, and then they got this. I was applying in Hong Kong and Sulawesi and Indonesia, and I think even Malaysia. I threw a couple out there, Thailand. So I thought I'll just try and expand myself, get out and see a bit of the world and do that, and got nothing from it.
Wow,
Come to the end of the month, and I'm still without a job and nowhere to live, and I was like, oh, what do I do now? Oh, well, just go back to Darwin and take a punt.
Yeah, right.
Come back to Darwin, and I had been staying in a hotel because I had nowhere to live. I rang a friend and said, oh, you still have that unit available with no one in it? She's like, oh, yeah. I was like, oh, can I rent it off you? She's like, yep, sure, no worries. I was like, oh, sweet. And then later that day, I got a phone call from a friend and said, oh, we're having a barbie, come around, blah, blah, blah. As it happens, Darwin sort of works this way, and into the conversation, might have a job for you. Come in on Monday and we'll have an interview with the CEO. Oh, okay, sweet, righto. So I'd gone from 1 week flying into Darwin with nowhere to live, no job, and then within a week I'd had somewhere to live and a full-time job.
Wow, that's awesome.
And I just got lucky. But this job was working for a shipping company, company called Sea Swift, and they shipped to Groote Island. That's how I knew the connections of the people. And so they shipped all the way around to Groote Island. But I was still keeping my ear open for jobs happening in Darwin, and I'd applied to a couple of the other clubs that I'd spoken about earlier and got nowhere with that. Obviously, no one thinking, oh, a guy from Groote Island, don't know what he's doing or whatever, And
What's Groote Island?
Yeah. exactly. And so I then ended up doing a whole heap of logistics stuff. I did a hell of a lot of fueling vessels. That was one of my main jobs I got into, working through from sort of the ground up, from just being a general hand to their fuel coordinator, all their return freight. So all the freight coming in from all the communities, I organised all that. And then dealing with all their fuel going out to all the remote communities. So because I had that been on Groot, I knew the territory pretty well. So I knew a lot of the names, and so it wasn't too much of a stretch knowing names and places. But I think over the 8 years that I was there at Sea Swift, I think I loaded something like 60 million litres of diesel.
Wow.
Wow. I don't know how many trucks and containers I loaded and unloaded, but so that was me for 8 years. I completely got out of the turf game and gardening and horticulture. I pretty much had a sea change, but in the other direction.
Indeed. I just want to ask, and like I said, I've not been to the north. I've not been to the northwest corner of Australia and WA, and not been to the Northern Territory up the north. Is the remoteness you talk about then, the remote communities and things like that by ocean? Like, I don't know. Is there communities on? There are lots of islands up that way. I know that there are, but I didn't know that. Do we service them? Is that how it works? Remote island communities? Is that how it works?
Yeah. So you start at the sort of the top of, and everyone would know sort of Bathurst and Melville Islands. They're the two big ones, and they've got like a lot of history to them.
Yep.
But then you start moving around the top, Croker, Goulburn Island, and then you get across into Elcho Island, and then you're sort of at the tip there where Nullarbor is, and then from there you go around into the Gulf, and then you've got Groot Island, Bickerton Island, and then during the wet season, a lot of these communities, the roads are cut off because of the amount of rainfall.
Yep.
Sorry. Need a cough button.
I've got one on my end, and I've been using it.
And a lot of these communities get cut off during the wet, so you have to then supply a lot of these coastal communities by barge. So it's a landing barge. So
right,
flat bottom with a big, front
big
door,
drawbridge.
Drop the door down and drive all the stuff on and off, and away you go.
Wow. Okay.
So there's a lot of communities, a lot of remote communities that a lot of people don't know of, and there's surprisingly quite a lot of people out in some of these communities.
And are they, like, I know Weeper on the western side of Cape York is mostly a mining community. Obviously, it sounds like that's what Groot is, obviously. So are some of these areas remote mining establishments as much as they're remote communities, island, Aboriginal communities and things like that the mainland has to support?
So a lot of them are Indigenous communities.
Yep.
Gove or Nullarbor they're a bauxite mine. They used to have a large refinery there for doing the smelting and stuff for the alumina and that.
Right.
Bauxite. Groot with manganese, and then Weeper, I believe, is... Oh, got me stumped. I can't remember what Weeper is. But then you get further down into the Gulf, you'd have places like MacArthur River, and that's sort of serviceable more by land. But
I've been to Corumba at the base of the Gulf of Carpentaria near Normanton.
Yep.
And I don't know if it gets cut off in the wet season, but I've been there by road. Yeah,
and I do think they do get cut off at times, and they they will service them with vessels and that. But that's usually from the East Coast, from Cairns.
Ah, and they go right up around. Yeah, okay, wow,
Yeah.
there you go. But
Yeah.
still, that's how the top end works. So we don't really understand or appreciate not only the scale, because you talked about it being like 3 days by boat or whatever it is to get from Darwin to Groot, which I still can't wrap my head around. That's such a big expanse of territory to cover, not just I'm talking about the Northern Territory, but just in general, to get around to all these places. And it sounds like there's a lot of work that's done out of Darwin for that. And that's what you were doing, the logistics side. That's incredible.
Yeah. So it was sometimes rewarding because you're helping people, getting them food and all that sort of stuff, and then getting their kids their Christmas presents and making sure that they get there in one piece and
all the things.
Stuff. And then my major role was probably fuel there for a fair bit, and that's keeping the lights on, and the aircon's running for a lot of these people.
Oh, like generators and stuff.
Yeah, because a lot of the power and water.
Because they wouldn't have anything. They're isolated, right? That's the whole point of your
diesel generators. Yep.
Wow.
A lot of that's gone to solar in some parts, but a lot of it still has diesel generation, fuel, power generation backups.
There you go. Things that we don't think about. Wowee. So a lot of time spent out of Hort in between spaces. I take it doing this. It would have been eye-opening. You would have learned a lot of stuff in a different way. And then you move from that to where? Are we getting closer to Humpty Doo? You've got quite a journey, mate. I don't even know if we're halfway or not.
No, we're almost there. So it was one of those things. I thought, I'll start getting back into golf, and I started playing golf again, and then I joined a club and did a year there, and it just didn't feel. It didn't feel like country enough for me. Like I wasn't in the clicky groups, you know what I mean? With some of these bigger clubs, you sort of get those sort of clicky networks where if you're not in there, you're not really in there, so to speak. And coming from Groot, it was a small club. Everyone sort of had a beer together after the rounds and stuff. No one just got up and left sort of, I've got to do this and see you later. And you're like, oh, okay, bye. And no chit chat afterwards. It's all just play golf and nick off. And
right, okay. So just transactional golf.
Yeah, and so I sort of come out to Humpty Doo with another co-worker and thought, we'll come out here and have a round, and come out and played 18 and played the comp, and people were friendly, and it had that sort of vibe, that sort of country, more of a country sort of a vibe, which from Gove, it had that same feel. So that Gove Groot sort of had that feel to it. So it felt comfortable.
It was like a community club in a sense, I gather.
Yeah.
That's cool. So that was your first experience at Humpty Doo?
Yeah, and so I was a member out here for a year and was playing on and off, not super regular or anything like that. And then one day, a couple of guys were talking about a greenkeeper had left, and the volunteers had been doing a lot of the work, and it got me thinking. And at that point, I'd actually started watching a YouTuber, Ben Sims.
I knew you were going to drop Ben's. I don't know why I thought you were going to drop Ben's name in there. Ben's a champion.
Yeah, he doesn't know this. He doesn't know me from bar soap. But I was just watching his videos just randomly, and I was like, I miss mowing green, and I miss mowing low, and, I miss doing this, and I miss top dressing, and, there was just little bits and pieces watching his videos, doing stuff, and I just like, it almost inspired me a little bit, and it put that in the back of my head. And when this conversation come up about, we don't have a greenkeeper, and they hadn't had anyone for about, I think it was 3 months.
Yep.
So the club was struggling a bit, and the greens were struggling, and I thought, I could do a better job. I could go in and do this. this would be a cakewalk.
Yep.
You know, just me being a little bit confident and cocky, and I don't know, I just felt like I could do better, and I want to do better for the club. And so at that time I spoke to the missus, and at that stage I think my little fella was 8 months old.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So
Firstborn?
firstborn.
Okay. So
Little
you're...
Logan.
Yep.
And so I said to her, I was like, oh, yeah, they're looking for a greenkeeper. I'm thinking about doing it. And she's like, oh, you should do it, you know, blah, blah, blah. You love gardening and doing all that stuff. And I took a considerable pay drop from logistics coming out here.
Sure.
Where, yeah, somewhere north of 15 grand pay cut.
Yeah, right.
It's a big whack. And I come out and had the interview with the guys, and they all seemed keen to get me on board because I'd been a member, and I think they were a bit worried about that I had been a member, and
Yep.
you know, oh, this guy's a bit of all talk and not a lot of show, and so I think they were a bit dubious on me at start, but yeah, got into it, and the missus tells everyone, she's like, oh, I'm so glad he's taken it because he doesn't yell at people in his sleep anymore. She wasn't worried about me having a heart attack or getting run over by someone at work. And, you know, there was a few things she was quite happy about. So at this stage, I've been here now 2 years, into my second year, and
Sensational.
things are plodding along.
Unreal, mate. What a journey to get there. And just so that people know, you mentioned Ben Sims before. So I know Ben, I've got to drop him out. Ben from Lawn Tips. Now he's a YouTube, social media accounts, and he's got his own private golf hole now out at Orange. So I got to know Ben because he was a superintendent in my region of the central western New South Wales out at Orange. He used to look after Orange Country Club, I think it was called, which was an 18-hole course out, if you know Orange or the Central West, it was like their third golf course in a way. It was out near the hospital, which has since closed down, but Ben transitioned from that. He was a super there to he'd done this stuff on YouTube, and he was, yeah, it's quite an incredible journey. So I've got to give a plug out to Ben from Lawn Tips, and that you mentioned him as someone that in a way has inspired you to get back into greenkeeping, into golf. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it probably just put that little thing in the back of your head, you know.
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, I forgot about doing this stuff, and
That's cool. I like it.
Doing that, and
I'll make sure to pass it on to him, mate. I might even flick him a text just so that he can listen to this episode. But he's a champion.
I could probably almost. I said it to someone the other day. I said, "Oh, I'm a born again turfy."
I love it.
Left it, come back to it, and so.
And this is the journey. I've heard this time and time again in our industry, and there's nothing wrong with that. Greenkeeping, it's a bit like the sport of golf. It comes and goes in your life as it kind of fits in, or you fit in it. I don't find you lose it. You sometimes have a break from it, and not uncommon, mate. So I'm glad to hear that was your journey, and that's how you sort of went around and came back. Your experience to get to Humpty Doo is brilliant. And now, mate, you've been now, as you said, a couple of years at Humpty Doo. I want you to tell. This is the part. I'm glad we've worked to this climax because I'm keen to hear about Humpty Doo. I've been intrigued by it. I want you to start off by telling us a little bit about the landscape of Humpty Doo, where you are relative to Darwin, if you can describe the landscape, and then describe the golf course for us and some of the things about the course, grass types, and that sort of stuff, mate. Please.
So Humpty Doo's located about 40 minutes south of Darwin. And generally runs, and even just that short distance, it runs sort of 2 degrees hotter and colder.
Okay. Bigger fluctuation.
And sometimes get a lot colder.
Right.
We are sort of situated close. There's a river system not far from us, and so we're sort of where I am in the shed in the clubhouse. It's sort of slightly elevated, and it's sort of everything just sort of tapers off to the back corner.
Okay.
And Uh, there's a lot of gum trees, ironbarks, um, that sort of, and then you sort of go into these sort of Banksia, Grevillea sort of, how would you describe it? Kind of like not a, kind of forested,
Okay.
more of like an arid type forest. And
Oh.
then once you start getting closer to the more swampy areas, you then start getting into, a different lot of vegetation as well. A few cycads, things like that around here as well.
Oh,
So
wow. Okay.
it's sort of, it's an environment of two weathers. Like the course play is completely different in the dry season as it does to in the wet season. I have irrigation on the fairways, tees, greens, but
Wow.
nothing in the rough. And the rough it's brown and there's not a lot left of it.
Okay, so it does bake out. And sorry, just to
Yeah.
clarify, you're a 9-hole golf course, is that right?
Yeah, it's a 9-hole golf course
Yep.
with alternate tees. So
Okay, cool.
some holes will have 3 tee beds on them, and
Yep.
there's a mixture of ladies, men's tees,
Yep.
that sort of setup. So
Okay.
it gives you a couple of different. So the front and back nines are as different as they could be, with different sort of angles to the fairways and the greens.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you got irrigation. I'm curious about all this. So you got irrigation to all of the playing surfaces, essentially, tees, fairways,
Yep.
greens, and surrounds. But this is the part that I'm trying to learn as I talk to more people. Jason Johnson in the past at Broome, and yourself now in the tropical north, is understanding this dry and wet. So when it's dry essentially. Like you said, your rough is baking out to a crisp. Essentially, I guess it's really thin, dried out. There's not much there. Does that mean it gets quite bare and you've got bare earth in spots, or it doesn't quite go that far?
Yeah, it gets pretty bare. Like from our first tee, you almost have to carry a probably 50, 100 meter, essentially, which is just gravel.
Oh, wow. Okay. So there's
quite-
not much there outside the irrigation lines.
No, and then obviously, as it bakes off, you lose your any vegetation that's there dies off.
Yep.
Then come the wet season, you get these heavy rains, which then pushes all that topsoil off. So in a lot of these areas, there's not a lot of topsoil, and we do have the odd outcrop of coffee rock.
Okay. Wow.
Which, your ball hits that, you know about it.
It's like the lava fields in Hawaii around the golf courses.
Yeah. Very similar, just probably a little bit more finer in its texture.
Okay, I was taking the piss. I had no idea.
No.
I was just talking, man. I had no idea. It's wow. That's so unique. So, can you explain the difference of the wet season, dry season? Like one period, is it 3 months? I don't know what the wet season up there. Is it a waterfall and then there's nothing? How long does it go for? Tell us some numbers, please, mate. Give us a bit of context.
So yeah, it's pretty much all or nothing at times. Like I think the start of this year, January was pretty wet for us. We had 815 mils.
In January, or is that for the
January.
year?
No, that's just January.
You had nearly a metre of rain in a month.
Yeah. It was a bit wet.
Wow.
But it was funny because then February was quite, well, I consider dry, and we only had 290 mil.
I know places that would do anything for that in a month, but I get that there's extremes. That's incredible.
Yeah. And so it sort of really tapered off in February, and I was like, I don't know how good this wet's going to be. But then the month of March, we got our second wettest. This March was the second wettest on record. And we got 840 mil.
What?
Sorry, 640 mil. Sorry. And yeah, that really kept things soggy after that. And then we had, I think April was drier than normal. We only had 29 mil
Oh, wow.
in
Okay.
April. And then we have had nothing since.
Right.
Like
Okay.
nothing. Zero.
Oh, like actually literally zero?
Zero. We have had no rainfall since April.
Wow. So, okay, that is very extreme. So,
I did get excited the other day. I was driving to work and I got raindrops on the windscreen. I was like, oh, it's starting. And then nothing. No, that was it.
So
It must have been just a bit too humid and decided to fall out of the sky.
what? Wow, this is quite remarkable. So, a lot of what happens with golf is the, I suppose, the interaction of not only golf on the turf grass itself, but there's that soil composition that matters, and into how the turf is growing and reacting to the golf ball. So, what's the soil type there, and how? Like you mentioned before, look. If you've got concrete, 800 mil in a month is going to make that soggy. So I understand that there's extremes, but what type of soil is it there? You mentioned gravelly type sections and things like that. What are you growing the grass in, and does it dry out and get crusty and hard for that period of time when it's the dry season, or how does it work? Is it free draining sandy stuff? I don't know, mate.
Yeah,
tell us.
It's a bit of a mixed bag of both. So down in one of the corners of the property, it's which is a couple of holes. It's like a native bush sand, so it drains really well, and holds moisture. It's quite a fine sort of a bush sand. It's got a lot of fines in it.
Okay. Yep.
And that does hold a lot of moisture at times.
Yep.
And then what they did do is they scraped off in a few spots when they were building the course a bit of topsoil where there was topsoil, and they added that to the fairways essentially to cover the coffee rock.
Oh, okay.
Which, as you know, on some holes I'm a bit scared. I haven't been able to run any large tines on any fairways yet, because I know that some of the irrigation is only like 6 inches under the ground.
Oh, fair dinkum.
Because they couldn't get it through the coffee rock.
Wow. Okay. You mentioned then, and I'm just jumping around a little bit while some of the things pop up because I'll probably forget to ask, which I have done in the past, so I'll try not to. You mentioned then about constructing the golf course. How old is it?
So the course, I think about 84.
Okay.
It originally started in someone's backyard down the road, and they had 4 holes, and they used to play those 4 holes on a Sunday morning.
Right.
And then from that grew the club, and then they got some land from the government, and then they got this spot here where it is now, and they started building a golf course. So it is all, for a long time, it was all voluntary based. So as you can imagine, that inherits a few gremlins, being that things were done when they got done and by whoever, and so there's no sort of continuity.
Sure.
Between a lot of the stuff. There was a couple of guys that have really done a lot of work here, and they still do. They help me out a lot. And yeah, so the club just sort of grew over time, and then eventually they even trialled artificial grass on one of the greens, thinking that might be a solution for them. This was, I think, in the early 90s. But they found as soon as you threw a ball onto this artificial stuff, it bounced off it like a rocket ship, and
yeah, for
you
sure,
could never hold a ball on it. So they sort of gave up on that idea, and then eventually went to grass greens.
So it's quite a community-based club, being that it was born out of people getting together and playing golf,
yeah,
and enjoying the sport, and then it grew from there by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
That's pretty cool. And is Humpty Doo? Is that the name of the golf course? Is that the name of the town?
Humpty Doo is the name of the town. The golf club itself is Humpty Doo and Rural Area Golf Club.
Right. Okay. A lot of people are going to laugh themselves silly at a golf course or in a town named Humpty Doo. Just saying.
Yeah, everyone knows the pub.
Okay, righto, the Humpty Doo pub. Okay, cool. So, getting back to the golf course a bit. Sorry for that digression, because I just was curious to understand a little bit of that. So they're your soil types and things like that, and it's a little bit of how they're going to drain and work and that sort of stuff. What sort of grass types do you have?
So on the greens, I've got a bit of a mixture. They were originally 3 to 8.
Yep.
That disappeared a long time ago. And they brought in some Novatech from Cairns. And
what is that? Sorry, mate. What is Novatech?
So Novatech is, I think it is 412.
So it's a cooch.
It's a cooch, yeah.
Okay.
I don't. I might have my numbers mixed up between the two. I think one and the other. And what happened was it got contaminated with another variety called Mountain Green.
And the cooch as well.
Type of cooch.
Okay.
Yeah, so that is whichever way it is. It's 411 and 412. I'm pretty sure somewhere around that.
Right. I'm going to have to look this up because I've never heard of it. We don't hear a lot of cooch stuff.
Novatech came off a green in Cairns. I think at the Cairns Golf Club.
Right.
And the Mountain Green come off the Townsville Golf Club.
Okay. Wow.
Having to use some history here. I'm trying to remember things.
Yeah, no. That's cool, mate. That's whether it's close, whether it's exactly right. I mean, I've thrown that to you with no notice at all. You're going to go from memory, but still, that's interesting. I like I said, coming from the south, we only hear usually most younger people will hear about the more modern varieties. Santa Ana and Conquest, the Legends, and so on and so on. But Windsor Green, Wintergreen. But that said, I'm fascinated. These were greens grade cooches. Is that what we're talking?
Yeah. So they brought them in. Novatech was the main one, and it was supposed to be a bit more tolerant to disease and humidity and all that sort of stuff than the 3 to 8. But what happened was the Mountain Green come in with it, and that has nearly virtually taken over. So that's now on every green. And
wow.
I have a couple of greens still with Novatech in them. So it kind of has that, not quite that bent green, that motley, that sort of old school motley look. It's kind of got that, but with different varieties of cooch.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
One's a lot coarser, darker green leaf, bit more fat and sort of stubby, and the Novatech is a nice sort of soft lime, very a little bit finer leaf.
Okay.
I'd like them both. They both look really nice.
I wonder, because I'm doing some research on South African cooch, I wonder if you mentioned the Novatechs are more limey green and a finer texture. That they're the two qualities I talk about with South African cooch, Cyanode and Transvalensis. But I'm just curious. I might do a little bit of research on that after we're finished with the pod, because that's interesting. I don't know them, so there you go. Might have nothing to do with it. I don't know that either.
They have presented their challenges. Obviously, I'd never worked on them before.
Yep.
And I'd just gone off what I used to do on Groot, as you do,
Sure.
You go from one job to the other. You're like, this is what I did. And this grass doesn't like what I used to do.
That's interesting.
You used to really be able to beat it up, and you could beat it up, feed the hell out of it, and then it'd come back in a flash, and then you could beat it up again and feed it up, and it was you'd mow a green.
You could be aggressive.
Catches off it, like with the humidity and you could be really aggressive with it. And it would come back quite quickly.
So this one throws the toys out of the cot and spits the dummy.
Oh yeah, and I even think on one green it's actually gone back a genetic variety or gone a different way again.
Wow.
And I find
Wow.
like when I verticut it, it comes up a lot coarser and takes a lot longer to get back to a more smoother playing surface.
I'm throwing this out to any turf scientists that are interested in this. What's going on at your course with these couch greens? They might. Who knows? I don't know who's listening sometimes. So, anyone who's doing research into couch varieties on greens, you're hearing them here, and you're hearing how they're functioning. So, you might be interested in doing and going and have a look and seeing some stuff. I'm just throwing it out there, mate, because it sounds interesting.
So we're the only ones in Darwin with this, with these two varieties that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I think everyone else is using. It could be Tiff Eagle, I think.
Yeah. Okay. A newer couch.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did some research into it, and there is no research on it. I think there's like, I think what I found on the internet was like one page.
Because all the TIFF stuff, right? That's all the modern golf greens. The 328's an older, and the 3s are an older varieties. But now it's all TIFFs. So if you're on greens and you got the TIFFs, it's that's where the research is going to be, because that's what a lot of people are using and they're pushing.
Yeah, and the club sort of had that name being a bit of a goat track, and they really struggled at times to keep grass on the greens. Just through budget and different practices and techniques. And I've managed to pretty much, I've still got a couple of gnarly greens that still throw me a spanner.
Yep.
I got a pretty ugly one, but I have built a new green to replace that.
Okay.
And hopefully get to take that out of commission. That's been a slow process, building a new green.
How do you go about that at a place like Humpty Doo that hasn't got a budget, we haven't talked about your staff yet and what your team is. Is it just a Jimmy Downs, or is there more to it?
So there's me, Head Greenkeeper, and then I've got my offsider at the moment, Neil.
Yep.
And he come out of retirement twice, and he's
right.
He's,
John Farnham tour.
He's 70, so he pods along and has fun. He loves it. He says it's the best job he's ever had.
Yeah, nice.
And I've got a couple of guys that volunteer a lot of their time and help out. All three of them are ex-presidents, and they love the course to bits, and they help out with a lot of the project work, do a lot of the heavy lifting, so to speak.
That's awesome.
But they're all retired now, and so usually come 10 o'clock, that's knock off for them, because that's when the bar's open. So they'll work till 10, get here early and work till 10 and disappear. And but no, they're a really good help. And yeah, the club's got quite a few members that really come out and do a lot, which helps.
So how challenging is it for, again, I'll go back to it because now we've got an idea of your team. How challenging is it to build a new green?
Pretty challenging. But they're being such a community club, there's a lot of guys that own businesses that are involved with the club, and we've got a couple of guys that know some earth moving people, so they kindly donated 200 ton of washed sand for me. They
wow,
donated 75 ton of gravel.
That's unreal.
And then got one of their guys to come and help build a pad for the green, do the sub base. He made a really good house pad, but it wasn't good for a green. But you can't get everything you want. No world class shapers up here.
Nothing like knowing your skill set. What do you need? I need a pad done for a green, righto. It's going to be in the shape of a house.
Yeah, it's pretty square, I tell you. Then I had another irrigation company come on board. They were a local company, and they were really kind, and they donated all the drainage. They don't even stock the drainage. They bought the drainage from somebody else and donated it. They donated all the pipe fittings, and yeah, so we pretty much piggybacked it off the old fourth green. So the fourth green, I built them side by side. There was enough room.
Okay.
And they've been planning to build this green for 5 years. There was mounds of dirt there for years and years that never sort of eventuated. And I had this real weird brown patch out the front. It was real golden colour, and I hadn't quite seen it before, and I didn't know what it was. So I did some samples, and it come back. I had 6 different diseases in the green.
Wow.
And that was the main contributing factor was the green's profile wasn't big enough.
Okay.
So the original green was built on a Saturday morning with 80 tonne of sand dropped there. They smoothed it out and threw some cores on it, and away they went.
Hey presto.
Hey presto. And that's how a lot of the greens were made around here.
Yeah, okay. And that makes sense given how the club and the course started.
Yeah. And so a lot of the greens are all slightly different in their bases, and so a couple are the same, but there's a few that are quite different. So that also presents its own little challenges as well.
Unreal. It's no doubt. That's an interesting understanding of what it takes out there and the support you've got locally. Again, it shows the community side of a golf club. And I've said this time and time again about remote golf clubs or regional clubs that aren't in major towns or regional towns or major cities, that it's a community thing. It's a gathering of people in that area that get together because they enjoy the game of golf, and a lot of it goes from there. And they enjoy their time playing golf with each other, against each other, having a drink, having a dinner or whatever it might be, partying or celebrating anything. That's how they work in that community sort of space, if you like, that community feel about the golf clubs, which are often the centre.
And there's definitely no shortage of hecklers either.
At least that doesn't change from anywhere in Australia, if not the world.
No.
Mate, yeah, go on.
But yeah, that green ended up, I think, when I sort of finished it, I think I was into it for about $500 and 2 cases of beer. So
I love it. I love it.
I've put a bit of chemical out on it now, but I'm trying to grow it in and that. And the wet season, obviously, I did this right in the middle of the start of our wet season. So that 800 and whatever,
yes,
in the month of January, I started that green that month.
Right.
And which was good to get the cooch established from. I just verticutted all the greens and just sprinkled that out over the top.
Yeah.
I didn't go the cores route.
Yep.
And went the style on side, and I was a bit hesitant because I'd never done it before, and I don't know what I was worried about because within 4 days I had roots that were down 2 centimeters. It was just crazy.
Wow.
And so that took off, but the problem was with the wet season, the surrounds took quite a hit, and I've done a couple of big heavy top dresses trying to get them back to the shape that they sort of were. Getting there close now, but it's taken that long just sort of from the wet season, just with obviously a heap of events and stuff through the dry season, because that's when you have all your major events in the territory playing golf. You don't hold any opens or anything open during the wet season.
Yep.
Everything's done in the dry. And so it was a bit of a challenge trying to get that growing in. So I wanted it ready for this year's dry season, but it was the surrounds that really held me up.
Okay.
Trying to get them to grow in and but it's plodding along. It is what it is for what I've got.
Yeah, 100%. So outside the greens, what grasses have you got on your fairway, surrounds and tees?
So tees, I've got a couple of tees that I've redone with Empire Zoysia.
Okay.
And I really like that on we've got some really small tees, so they cop a lot of wear. So more wear from the hackers when they swing, like it's their feet movement that's wrecking the surface, not so much the divots.
Yeah, okay. The skewing of their feet and shoes. And
the skewing of the feet and all that sort of stuff. So for their wear tolerance, the Zoysia has been really good, and it's so good at holding out other varieties of grass, the weeds and stuff. Like the one I did.
Wow.
last wet season. So what are we, 20, I think it was April 23. I haven't even sprayed any selective herbicide on it. I haven't had a need to.
Fair income. It's just that tighter surface.
It's just that tight. It just does not let other stuff in, and I love it.
Wow.
For that fact. So then when we rebuilt the 8th tee, the club expanded the kids' playground. We had to move the tee forward, and so I went with the Empire Zoysia there. And once again, to their credit, the local turf farmer, Turf NT, I'll shout out Gav. He's a good bloke.
Sure, absolutely.
He donated 300 square meters of zoysia.
Wow.
To the club. And I don't know what the dollar value on that is, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty close to around that sort of $5,000 mark.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, that's epic.
So he's got his sign now on that tee. That's sort of what we can do for people is get their, they help us out and we can get their names on the tee signs and out on the course and signage elsewhere. You sort of got to do what you got to do, and it helps them out by getting their name out there, as well as them really helping out the club.
For sure, mate. That's like you said, the where you are and how the club and the course functions. That support is amazing, and it makes a difference clearly on the ground. Literally makes a difference to your course and how it's continuing to improve and wow, and what you're able to provide for the golfers that come to play. And no doubt those people from some of those businesses, they're supported by the local community and they do that in return. And sometimes, they're also people who go out and enjoy the golf course. So why not be able to help out if they can too? So it's a great way of, you scratching their back and they're scratching yours, which is really great to hear, mate. I'm glad that that's how a place like Humpty Doo is working, which is really, because at the end of the day, this is a wonderful part of the sport of golf, and certainly how the closeness in our community of greenkeeping in our industry works as well.
Yeah. So the rest of the tees are sort of a real mixture of Queensland blue, buffalo, narrow leaf carpet grass, clover. They're a bit of a mishmash.
But it works.
And the same as the fairways. Bit of green leaves park out there.
Yep.
Someone brought that in at one point. There's a couple of fairways that have got a bit of that in it, and so it's a real mixed bag. I call it trash.
I think you're being a little bit harsh, but I think
it's I try and keep it green and try and keep the fairways green and the everything nice and green and stuff. So people seem to think it's green and it's good. That's what their sort of mindset is, but I look at it and go, oh, it looks like a dog's breakfast. You're always your own worst critic.
Yeah.
They go, oh, everything's looking really good, and all you can see is weeds and disease.
But in essence, that's part of our job, to be on top of that stuff before they notice, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Mate, unreal. Great insight into the maintenance and how a golf course works and how you're doing improvements around the place and all that sort of stuff. I'd like to know from you, I don't know how many people have ever been to Humpty Doo. I know, actually, I don't know if I know Lock and Leash. I'm sure they probably went to Humpty Doo from Finding Fairways. What's for you and for anyone in the Northern Territory? Hopefully this goes around the Northern Territory in the golf community. I really hope it does. For anyone who might visit up there and have a game of golf, or a regular, for you, you're on there every day. What's one of your favourite spots on the golf course? It's just you see it nicely in the morning. I know you mentioned that more in the fishing in the morning, but maybe the afternoon's better with a beer in hand potentially. What's a great spot on the golf course that you like to potentially enjoy for a few quiet moments?
For me, it's the 9th tee, but not looking at the course. It's actually turning around and looking the other way, and all you can see is this these sort of like bottle brush groves of kind of like a bit of a floodplain that's all just sort of that. For guys down south, it'd be close to that sort of like tea tree, heath sort of vegetation. It's quite low, but it's super shrubby. And then you just sort of look off into the distance and you've got, a bit of a tree line. That's where the major waterway is. And, getting a nice photo there at sunset's always nice. I think that's where I made the photographer go for our wedding earlier this year.
Nice.
So, got a couple of wedding photos on that tee.
Was that you so for yourself?
Color. Yeah.
Yeah, for you and your wife. Fantastic, mate. Congratulations. Great stuff.
Thanks.
That sounds like a pretty amazing spot. You'll have to send me a couple of photos or something of that area, just that viewpoint, so I can throw some couple of things up on social. So that sounds really interesting. What a great feel. You've described that quite well. I'm curious to see the photos because that sounds really interesting. And sometimes, I'm glad you mentioned it. It's not necessarily looking at the golf course. It's more for you. It's the view of the setting of the golf course, the natural landscape that surrounds the golf course, that the golf course is basically placed and built inside of. That's something that's important to protect, and it's the feel. It's the essence of the golf course, the wallpaper, if you like, without being that golf course. So when you're there, that's your experience. And mate, I think that's a great thing to share because people might not have even thought about sticking their head up. As I always say, where's a nice place to stick your head up and have a look around? And that's exactly how you've just described that at the ninth tee, mate. Thank you very much for that. It's really interesting.
And probably thanks to you. Listening to some of your earlier podcasts, I sort of took that on board with a lot of your architecture stuff.
Yep.
And I implemented like a standardization plan for the course.
Oh, wow.
The first year that I was here. And I was still working through that. It was, only a small budget. You just keep chipping away at things. And,
sure.
But one of my pet things was there's quite a few coconuts on the course.
Yeah. And
the course is described even on our website as being a bush course, and that's something that I'm very fond of. And so we're working through, it's in our plans to eventually eradicate all the coconuts from the course because I feel like they're a safety risk, 2, they're messy, and 3, we're not by the beach.
Yeah,
There's no need for these coconuts to be here, and I think it takes away from a lot of the natural bush setting.
So they've been brought in over the years.
Yeah, and you know how it is. Some of the older members decide to start planting around a tea bed. They have their own little gardens, and they start doing these little, they have these little pockets of gardens everywhere that doesn't match anything else on the course.
Yep.
I don't plan to get rid of any of those anytime soon, but I want to work towards, making it more, enhancing that bush identity for the course, and making it a lot more unique because we have a lot more trees out here than, say, a couple of the other courses in Darwin. So some of those guys, when they come out to play Humpty Doo, they can actually find it quite challenging because it's quite tree lined.
Okay, interesting.
So, it's a very different course to what's around Darwin. So it's always something different to come out and play.
Unreal, mate. It's great that you've implemented something like that. You've got a plan that you're working towards, and they're forever developing and changing, and you're always improving it and working on them. But for me, that's one of the things I always find is a golf course is a reflection of its location and where it sits. And I think this is my own personal view, that's when you get the best out of a golf course, when it is a reflection of its local environment, when it's got those bits and pieces, the essence. Sometimes they're hard for people to put their finger on exactly what it is, but they know it's the feeling of where they are. And I think a golf course that does that well gives you something else that no other golf course can give. It doesn't matter where it is. That's what makes it unique. And that's what makes every golf course unique. But it's the golf courses that have thought about it and do it well that make the difference. So, mate, it's nice to hear that you've done that. Mate, I never thought I would have been an inspiration or at least a thought process of doing something like that. So, mate, I'm pleased to hear that. I'm humbled by it, actually.
Yeah, Thanks for your podcast. Appreciate it.
No, thank you, mate. It's people like you and everyone listening that make the difference, and what it's it's allowed for this partnership that I'm going to throw in for John Deere Golf to be involved with on Keeper of the Greens, because without people like yourself, without everyone listening to this that are interested in the inner workings of a golf course, and they're interested in the greenkeeping side of a golf course, and all the parts of even golfers and committee members, and I say this all the time, that listen to this podcast, because of all those people listening in the wider golf community and greenkeeping community, that's what makes this podcast work. That's what has allowed for John Deere Golf to be working with me in a partnership to bring this and to do so much more with the podcast. And that's why I'm so appreciative of people like you that say yes to coming on the podcast, people that listen and drop me messages and notes and things like that, mate. It's humbling, and I'm the one who's appreciative of everything that you guys do, yourself and all the other people who listen and people who I interview. So, mate, thank you. Don't need to thank me. Thank you. Mate, I've been blown away by the Northern Territory, and I've been blown away by your story. I love, for anyone who's thinking of travelling, or anyone who travels to Darwin or is thinking of putting in a golf trip, I'm going to go and visit Humpty Doo. What'd you say, 40 minutes south of town?
Yep, 40 minutes.
It's not hard. People travel. I travel further than that in Sydney to go for a game of golf. It takes an hour to drive across the city. So I'm going to say to people loud and proud here that listen to the podcast, tell someone you know who's travelling for golf, or who's going up to Darwin to play golf, or might be there for a bit of a holiday, to go and have a game at Humpty Doo. Experience what you're doing there, Jimmy, at Humpty Doo, and what the club is all about, the local community of the club. It sounds like a wonderful golf club to go and enjoy a game at. It sounds like a wonderful golf course and environment to experience golf in, and a very unique one that's different to anywhere in Australia by the sounds of it, mate. It's I think you're doing an incredible job there, and I hope that this puts it a little bit more on the map than it's been before, mate. This is one of the reasons why I wanted to get you on the podcast. You very early on, I know that you got in touch with me and helping me out with some information, like I said earlier. So, mate, I'm very appreciative of your help for me on the podcast, and I hope that we're talking about Humpty Doo, we can do it justice, and we can put its name out there more, and certainly the golf side of things, and get people to visit from time to time. Anyone on socials who's had a hit at Humpty Doo, tag me or drop my name and mention somewhere so I can reshare it, because that'd be pretty cool. I want to see some other photos as well from you, Jimmy, and from anyone else who's out there traveling, mate. It's mate, you're quite a journey. How's it feel having done all that and got to where you are? You must be proud of your greenkeeping career to get to where you are, and the things that you're doing there at Humpty Doo.
Yeah, it's probably a lot different to a lot of other greenkeepers out there. Like, I haven't done the big name courses and any of that stuff, really. I've sort of been quite remote essentially my whole greenkeeping career. And yeah, I enjoy the people. That's what makes it nice coming to work. You got your regulars to give you a wave and, say you're doing a great job. And, every time people say that, it always gives you another little pep in the step. You go, oh, I'm on the right direction. I need to just keep going. And yeah.
Mate, I'm going to say it then. If you're too humble to say it, I think what you're doing at Humpty Doo is fantastic. What you're part of at Humpty Doo sounds pretty special, to be honest. At a very community-based, albeit remote from the rest of the country, but a regional style golf club in a beautiful setting like that. I think it's hard work. You've got volunteers that help you out on course as well. You've got a very small team. You're offside of there. You mentioned before, Neil, I think it was. Is that right?
Yep.
I think it all has built well, and it sounds fantastic to go out and see the stuff that you're doing for anyone else who's been there. Like I said, I haven't. Hopefully one day I will. I don't know when that day will come. But, mate, it's I think you should be proud, because the story that you've just told us all and that I've just heard from you is a fantastic greenkeeping journey, and culminating in where you are today. Who knows where you'll be tomorrow in your career, but what you're doing and what you're helping that club at Humpty Doo achieve, a small club achieve, and point them in the right direction and help them improve. I mean, all those things are worth being proud of from where I sit. And having heard your story, mate, I think it's an absolute cracker of a story in some of the places you've been in your career. I think you should be proud, mate, and I congratulate you because it's fantastic what you're doing, mate. Congratulations on what you have been doing and what you're achieving there for the club at Humpty Doo.
Thanks, Steve. That's very nice, yeah.
Mate, it's the least I can do for you giving the time. Thank you so much for being on the second episode of John Deere Golf, Keeper of the Greens on the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast. I've got to get it all out there because without the support of John Deere Golf, this wouldn't be happening. I can tell you that right now. So I'm stoked to be able to bring that to you in partnership with John Deere Golf for everyone listening. Mate, you've been a fantastic guest and a wonderful story, like I've just mentioned. Thank you so much for the time. And certainly it was ended up being a much bigger conversation for a 9-hole golf course at Humpty Doo than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
And I'm glad, mate, because it's been really enjoyable. It's been really enjoyable. Jimmy Downs, thank you so much for being on John Deere Golf, Keeper of the Greens, and I look forward to hearing more, seeing more, and sharing some of your stuff on socials, mate. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And yeah, if anyone wants to follow me, they can follow me at the Humpty Doo Greenkeeper and see all the weird and wonderful things that I get up to in this little 9-hole golf course.
Absolutely, mate, and I'll be tagging the living daylights out of it, so, so you'll be on everything. So that's all good. Fantastic, mate. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed that one. I had a whale of a time, as you could tell, going to some interesting parts that I didn't know about. It's a golf course that I certainly haven't heard of before, and Humpty Doo sounds like a real treat. So if you're up there in the Northern Territory or travelling around Australia and you want to go somewhere different, have a look and experience something different and something pretty cool, go and have a round at Humpty Doo and support a fantastic little 9-hole golf course up there and see what it's all about, see what's going on course, because it sounds pretty awesome and pretty interesting. And if you see Jimmy out there, say g'day, because he'll know where you've heard it, and you can mention the golf. You can mention the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast, and John Deere Golf, Keeper of the Greens is where you heard his story, and how you're able to get meander your way up there to Humpty Doo and go and check out the golf course. But thank you so much to Jimmy Downs. Thank you everyone for listening. If you enjoyed that one, please like, share, and make sure you subscribe to the Golf and Greenkeeper podcast so we can keep this growing. I'd love nothing more than for this to be #1 golf podcast in Australia. I'm aiming high. We're going for the moon here and looking to get to #1. So make sure you pass it around. The more people that listen, the higher it gets, and that's what we want to try and do. We've got so many stories coming to you with this partnership with John Deere Golf that I have for Keeper of the Greens. It's fantastic. Make sure you check out the show notes. There's plenty of clickables in there, along with the partners of this segment, Keeper of the Greens, being John Deere Golf, and I can't mention them enough. It's fantastic, and I can't say thank you enough for everything that we're doing, working together. We've got some great things in the pipeline, so make sure you continue to support us, and I do say thank you to everyone for listening as always, because without you, this doesn't happen. So please pass it around to people you know that might be interested in some of these wonderful stories we have, and let's get more of it out there of the people that help looking after golf courses that we love to go and enjoy and play all the time. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll leave you with it. You hit them clean, we'll keep them green, and I'll catch up with you very soon. And I'll let you in on a little secret. This is a PS, a postscript. I'll let you in on a little secret. You listening? Just come in real close. Turn it up a little bit louder. Next month, I'm travelling to Melbourne to do an in-person interview with someone very, very special in our industry. I know that you're going to want to listen to it. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast, because this one is worth waiting for. There you go, mate. How was that?
Yeah, good. I could probably talk to you for another couple of hours.
Like I said, it's
But,
honestly, you were
yeah,
telling me that stuff. I could go into so much more, and not
yeah,
all of it. And I've got to say that it just depends how I'm looking at time and length of time and stuff like that. And for the most part, well, for all of it, like you said, I could have kept going. That I wanted to talk to you more about the logistics side of the Northern Territory, because that just fascinates me. That stuff, honestly, that shit's incredible. I can't believe the expanse. I didn't know. I didn't know they looked after.
big country.
Yeah, mate, and like I said, I've been through most of it by car as well, so I understand the expanse of the country. But shit, man, you Darwin services all those remote communities. I had no idea that there were that many places up there. It's wild.
Yeah, plenty of, and like I didn't rattle off half of them.
No, I don't doubt it.
They were just the big ones. So
I don't doubt it. Incredible. Mate, I am going to let you go. I'm going to say thanks again, mate. I appreciate that. I really do. Personally, I appreciate you taking the time to do that. That was fantastic, and a great story. Like I said, you've got a hell of a career, mate. It didn't start off start off really tough for you, but holy shit, you've been and seen some places, and you've the stuff you've done at Humpty Doo. I was being honest when I say that. That's I see more. I've always got a kick out of having worked in a sort of a regional centre in the Blue Mountains in a way, but a lot of my life has been out the west of New South Wales in the central west. So I know a lot of the smaller courses, and I think it means more on a smaller club at a smaller course to be able to provide those things like returfing a tee, or if you're building a green. Sometimes that'll happen once every 10 or whatever years, right? It doesn't happen very often. If you can do that on the smell of an oily rag with volunteers and donations from people who own businesses and all that sort of stuff, that means the world to that club so much more than a club of 5 or 6 staff with a 600 members or whatever it might be that will do one every couple of years. It really does, and it makes such a difference. And it sounds like Humpty Doo is just a great part of the world.
Yeah, it's unique. Definitely unique, especially the weather. Like, the course plays completely different. It's like having 2 different golf courses.
Yeah, I bet. Is there much golf? You probably don't get much golf in the wet season because it's wet.
Since I've started here, they're getting more.
That's good, mate. It sounds like it's already a difference in the work that you're doing, and it shows up on the golf course, right? So, and you got married there, mate. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a showcase the place off, and
memories forever, right? It's something that wherever you guys end up going, whether you stay in the NT, I don't know.